Welcome back. I'm going to go over how to set up your gradebook. Okay, so we'll start off with a empty core shell that I haven't quite set up yet. So we'll go into gradebook and it tells us you haven't signed any coursework, manage your gradebook settings, or get started in the course content page. So there is no quizzes section. All of that is in content, but I'm going to sort of ignore this for now. I'm going to hit this little gear on the right that says settings. So we'll scroll down here um, and we see setup overall grade. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You have the option, just like in eCentennial, to use points or weighted. Now, I typically use weighted rather than points. Weighted will show it in a percentage, and it does still use points for the individual items in that category. And you can break them down and distribute it, all the same options you had in eCentennial. So this is one thing that's a little bit different here is it defaults you with all of these categories, a lot of which you're probably not going to use. So Centennial College standard for apprenticeship there is 55% for quizzes and tests. 25% of that is the exam. So another 30 for your regular quizzes and tests, 15% for homework, 30% for lab. So all that together should come to 100% if I did my math right. And it looks like for MAP programs or diploma programs, quizzes and assignments are 20%, midterm is 25%, lab is 30%, and final is 25%. It's helpful, I find, before you get to this page, if you just write it down on a piece of paper, what you want to do, so you're nice and organized. But I'm going to set this up for my apprentices. I'm going to use assignments for their lab, which is 30%. You'll notice as soon as I've typed 30% in here, it has equally distributed the other values. So discussion, for me, there's nothing that's graded under discussion. If you hit this circle with a line through it, takes it out of the equation, zeroes it out, and it grays out. We're not using that. The exam is 25%. Okay. Forms is nothing for me. Homework is 15%. No grading of journals or presentations. Now you have quiz and test. This can be useful if you want to use one of these for the midterm. I'm going to put everything under, actually, I think I'll use everything under quiz, and it's defaulted the rest of the value there, 30%. Now you do see this little lock on the left-hand side. And what this does is it locks in a value. So I'll show you what that means. So I've added three categories here. It's by default put them at 10% to even it out. Now, if I was to bump this to 20%, you would see each of them goes to 5. However, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want journal locked in at 10%. If I, for whatever reason, want presentation to be worth 15%. Okay, so it stops it from automatically changing the value to accommodate another change. I'm going to take that out of the equation, and I'm going to take that one out as well. So I have quiz 30%, homework 15%, exam 25%, and assignment, which I use as lab, at 30%. Okay, that's total to 100% by default. I'm going to hit save. Now, you can hit the X on the left-hand side. One thing you may be wondering is, hey, I have a category that wasn't listed there that I want to utilize, such as midterm. Let's say you specifically want midterm in. So we're here, but I'm going to go back out just so you can see how I got here. So I'm in gradebook, and I hit the little gear again, scroll down about midway through. And you see here it says grade categories. I'm going to add a new category, and I'll title this one midterm. There we go, midterm. And if I click away, it's been created. However, you're not done. I have to go back to manage overall grade settings. We can see midterm has been added here, but it doesn't have any value because everything else is locked in. So if I unlock quizzes and I change this value to, or if I put in a value for midterm, let's say 15%, you can see it's evened out. Okay, so it's important if you add in a customized grade category, you have to put a value behind it, or it won't be accounted for. So let's go ahead. I've added midterm there, and I can hit save, and it tells you on the bottom you've totaled to 100%. Just like eCentennial, if you do something where it doesn't come to 100%, it gives you a little warning there. Weigh gradable items within a category proportionally or equally. I'm using proportionally. This is again another setting you had in eCentennial as well. Equally would mean that if I had quiz 1 and quiz 2, quiz 1 being 5 marks or 5 questions, and quiz 2 being 15, if I did equally, they'd have the same value. Proportionally would mean that the one that has more questions or points associated to it has the greater value within that category. And again, that's nothing new. That's always something we were able to do. So that's how you're going to create your grade categories in Luminate here. You still see all these other ones that aren't being utilized, but the students don't see them. If you've X'd them out and put them at 0 value, they don't actually show up in the student view. So why don't I go ahead and do that? We'll hit gradebook here, and there we go. They have to hit, of course, this is an empty class and they've not put anything here, but they click on their grade and it gives you the breakdown here, midterm, assignments, exam, homework, etc. Okay, one thing that isn't as nice, that won't really show up on this page. So you can, they can organize it based off category, and you can change that when you put all your items together. You can put them in whatever order you want the students to view it, but they don't see those headers like we are accustomed to in eCentennial. But they are there, and you do need to break down your items based off the category. Why don't I go ahead and go through how to create a quiz as well. So I'll exit the student preview. Quizzes will be created in the content section. There is no separate section for it. We can hit add content. This can be done a number of different ways. You can organize this by weeks. You can organize it however you like. I have a folder typically that just says assessments. If I can spell it right, there we go. And then in this folder, I'm going to create the quizzes. Now, I break it down further. Another folder here that says theory assessments for the quizzes I do in class, or theory quizzes, and then chapter quizzes for their homework. But you may break it down by week, and you might have a week 7 module, and in that week 7 module is your quiz for week 7. Either which way, the setting up or creating of the quiz is the same. So you'll click test, and you'll hit this little plus here to create a question. I'll add a multiple choice question. It defaults to 3 selections for some reason, but it's very easy to add another selection. And just like always, I'll make it super clear. Okay, so you'll have to select a correct answer for the student to choose. You can hit save. Once that's created, on the right-hand side here, it changed that from 100 points to 1 point because that's how many questions you have. And then you can just continue to hit this little plus sign, whether below or above, to create more questions. You do have the option to add questions. So if this is my midterm, I may want to use questions that I've had on previous quizzes. So I can click reuse questions, and obviously this is an empty core shell, but on the left-hand side, all of the additional quizzes that I've done so far would populate there, and I could attribute those or add those quiz questions into this quiz as well. So you'd select them and copy them over, relatively easy. One thing that it doesn't do nicely with eCentennial, you could go multiple choice, save and new, and you could just keep hopping along. You will have to hit this plus and click multiple choice question each time, or true and false, whatever type of question you want to create for the student. Now, grade category on the right-hand side, this is the midterm. So I need to click this, okay? And I need to select midterm. And this is important that you assign it correctly to whatever category you want it to fall under. Um, Typical options here. So for due dates, um, it's defaulted this time in here. Um, I would select, this is how I do it. Okay, so if my quiz is at, let's say I assign it first thing and class starts at 9:30, what I usually do is give students a little bit of time to get in there. And then I'll select prohibit new attempts after due date. What that means is if the students let's say you have a student who walks in a few minutes late for the quiz, they can still get into the quiz, so long as it's before 9:50. But if they're coming in afterwards, they're not going to be able to do the quiz. Now you can play with this quite a bit and further. If you click prohibit late submissions, if the student, you have to be careful with this because let's say you've assigned 10 minutes to do the quiz, but the student got in a minute late, it's automatically going to submit once you hit that time, which may be what you want. This is just totally how you would choose to use that deadline. Um, Now, display one question at a time. You had these options in eCentennial as well. Prohibit backtracking, meaning they can't go back and forth between questions. Randomize questions. Randomize answers. Unfortunately, as far as I've seen, you can only randomize answers for all the questions or none of the questions. In eCentennial, you could select a quiz and, question 3, you've randomized the options, and question 4, you haven't. So be careful with this because if you've selected, if you have a quiz that says all of the above or none of the above, and then you randomize it, it will mix them all around. So it's something to watch out for. Grade category measured by points, and then assessment results. Okay, submission views in terms of what the students are able to see after they've completed the quiz. If this is a homework quiz, I usually do something like allow the students to view their submission after all grades are posted. So once all of the students have submitted their homework in that quiz, they've all completed their homework quiz, now they can all view their submissions, which means that they can't tell each other the answers. Now, after all grades are posted, so you can also collect show correct answers if you like. I generally don't. It will show them specifically which questions they got wrong. Okay, so allow students to view their submission. You do have other options here after submission. So that's if they've submitted, then right away they can see their submission view. And I'll hit save here. And then you have to click the next one below, allow students to view their submissions. And it just brings back the same sort of feedback menu in terms of what they're going to see. Correct answer, access code. You may want to use these for your in-class quizzes, again, to ensure that only students who are in class are completing your quizzes. You cannot customize, as far as I've seen, you can't customize what this code is in any way. What you can do is change the code. But you can't, if you wanted your password to be something custom or something that the students would type in with text, you don't get that option. So it becomes a little bit more randomized. Add a time limit. There we go. So now you do have the option. Work is automatically saved and submitted when when the time expires. That's typically what you would use. And then you do have the option to add extra time if you wanted to give everyone additional time. You do have to be careful. It did warn me here. For example, it said, there's a conflict by selecting prohibit late submissions. The due date will override any extra time allowances. So you do have to be a little bit careful with what rules you've set to make sure they don't overlap with each other. But that's pretty much it for creating a quiz. If you want to give a student additional time because they have a IEP or ISP, what you have to do is, and I'm not going to do it in this course shell because I have students and I want their names to remain hidden, but you would actually go directly into, you would go into your course roster to view your students. You'd click on that student and then you can, from there, select the additional time that student is going to get as per their IEP or ISP to ensure that it's been attributed to all the quizzes. To give students rewrites and make other changes, you do the same thing. You can click under roster, click under the student, and then you can view their assessments and give them another attempt or adjust any further accommodations. Okay, as always, if you have questions, send either me or Ian an email or flag us down in the hall, and we'll do our best to answer those questions or create any additional videos that you folks may be interested in.